Namaste, my friends. Welcome to Happy Jack Yoga Podcast. My name is Happy Jack, coming at you live. One of the final weeks from Harvard University. Get school's done, ready to graduate, but I'm still here, and I'm here live with.
Happy Hannah. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. This month in May, we've got these Bhakti satsang calls right before the podcast, and so actually we got quite a little bit larger group than usual here live with us, and it's beautiful after having had like 2 months of drinking from a fire hose and like absorbing so much teachings and wisdom from so many teachers, 48 different teachers, to now be able to hear from the community, hear their reflections, hear their story, get to know them, ask questions. And it's this is what we love to do, to be in community. We are teachers, Hanna. We teach yoga. We actually have 30 different courses, and we are competent teachers. But I think if I could speak for both of us, what we really love doing is being in community and being in conversation. And that's something that we love to do regularly. And that's what we're doing today on the podcast.
Yeah, I love that. It's like we heal in relationship, we grow in relationship. And that's what this is. That's what we do in our circles and in our trainings. That's why it's different than maybe doing a self-paced course. Although even in our self-paced courses, I think you get to know a lot of the yogis who are also doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, because there's sharing circles that are recorded and are a part of it. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It is important to be in it together, to be in it with others, and to, as Patricia was sharing on the previous call, with Patanjali yoga, there's some practices where it's about stilling the fluctuations of the mind, or, maybe being a renounced yogi going into the mountains. And that's a path. That's for some, very few. But then there's this idea of satsang and sangha and being in community and the importance of it. And we heard from Swati, actually, who's still here, Swati. She was sharing about, in Hyderabad, college student, right? And I could just imagine, having it doesn't sound like temptations for her, but having the influence of people live in college life, which is very normal. But then, also having this calling to spirituality and to divinity and to what really matters most. I think that's how I've just sought happiness in all the wrong places, and I tried them all. And it seemed fun, or at least I was able to numb out in some way. But now it's like, hey, what really matters? And I feel like a lot of that can come through this type of conversation and this type of community.
Yeah, and also I think that happiness is a constant balancing and a constant revealing of itself. If it isn't it, you know, there's different ways to what I feel like you're describing is also a lifestyle, habits that create a lifestyle that feel more nourishing to you and more calming and more expansive, maybe.
Yeah. And what I'm learning is that, like, in this material world, in this Kali Yuga, where all this illusion is and all these temptations and dualities, there's nowhere that's perfect. We've been, Hanna, we've been to the caves in India. We've been to the ashrams. I'm now living at the temple in Boston, and it's amazing. I was just thinking, but I don't want to say downsides, but there's sacrifices or consequences with every decision we make. And so as much as I love living at the ashram, spiritually, it is so uplifting, and there is nothing like it. And that makes it worth it. And that's why I made the decision. But I at times give up my quality of sleep, sometimes give up the the quality of nutrition, and obviously it's made with love, but it's, food can be a little bit heavy or a little bit oily. I'm just not used to it as much. So kind of a little bit sacrifice on sleep, a little bit sacrifice on nutrition sometimes. I thrive when I can take a daily nap after lunch. And when I had my own home, my own apartment, I could come home and I could take a nap. But when you're living, with dozens of people and there's hustle and bustle, it's just, so anyways, some sacrifices were made, but it was totally worth it for the spiritual upliftment. I guess I share that partially for Swati as well, who is, in the college environment. It may feel like, oh, if I could only live at the temple, or if I could only live with devotees. There's always going to be, when we're dealing with people, and there's always going to be give and take and sacrifice, and so we do our best.
Yeah, because conflict, what I hear you saying that is that it's not like the ashram or the devotees are conflict-free people. They are still humans and they're also on their journey, and it's a different environment, than maybe others, and though it's not free of conflict either.
Totally. What I do love about the association is that the quality of the conversation. Like, people, they want to talk about meaningful things. Like, we're never like kind of chatting about the hockey game or the weather, or it's really deep, meaningful conversations. But that being said, with dozens of people or a big congregation, there's going to be certain personalities that is just like, man, I love this person. I could sit and listen to them and talk to them, and it's just like they're my bestie. And others were just different personality, doesn't mesh as well. But as you say, that's just the nature of life. And so it's finding those people that fit our nature.
Yeah, and really, like, I think that there's research that shows there's I forget what it's called, is it, what if was it at Harvard, and if it was called the happiness research, or what it was actually called, or what it is called, was a research on what is it that makes people live the happiest lives. And like we've said on this podcast in the past, it's not money, it's not health, it's not the destination, but really it is the relationships, the quality of the relationships that we have, that determines happiness and longevity. That's just a fact. So association that you often talk about, and that's what, in Buddhism is the Sangha, the community. In Happy Jack Yoga, it's the community. And in so many, contexts, we have these different communities that we're part of. And and we seem to be surprised how, and we often end up discussing this, how important it is who we surround ourselves with, and the impact of the people in our lives is so huge. It's everything. Like, imagine working in an office and not feeling connected or safe or thriving with the people, or in their family. If they don't bring the best out of you, it's going to be different. It's going to have a different impact. And still, even if it's not the perfect environment, the fact that you are in important relationships is actually, like, they can't even explain what it is exactly that happens, but it is what pretty much keeps us alive. So relationship is everything.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I mean, I notice myself seeking out people who are like me, and people who are really easy to get along with. But actually, it doesn't matter. There's basically everybody, even all the people I love, people I love best. If we were together like all the time, there would be, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be disagreement. There's going to be disappointment. And actually, as I'm thinking about it, as much as we seek out people that, are really easy to be with and kind of relate, it's often the people that trigger us that can be the best teachers, right? Whether it's a challenging student, whether it's a challenging roommate, whoever it happens to be, like I've noticed over the past year, I think I can think of three instances where I got angry, and I
Mhm.
didn't do anything bad or wrong. I didn't, didn't do anything inappropriate, but I felt this anger come up, and so if I was only in a cave, if I was only in an ashram, like really being by myself, and I didn't have the opportunity for these emotions to come up, then I maybe it would just kind of stay in there and kind of stay suppressed, but now to be able to see like, oh, these circumstances or these types of people or these types of situations bring this up in me. And but now as yogis, instead of like blaming them, like they did this or they should have this or that, we get to turn the light on ourselves. What is it in me? Who, who am I that's allowing this emotion or this response to show up? And so not we don't always want to be in environments that are just like always challenging us and always triggering us, but it seems like actually the growth and the progress can come from these challenging moments.
Yeah, I guess all challenge is an opportunity for growth, right? Like, look at us uncoupling, for example. If we did not do the work of still needing to relate and wanting to relate to each other,
Mm,
I feel like for both of us, it has been a huge opportunity for growth. And some people say that if you don't learn from your previous relationship, then you'll bring those same issues into your next relationship.
mm,
And in that way, we've been lucky that we've given ourselves the time. It hasn't always been easy, and it probably won't always be easy, but I do think that it's been an opportunity to really
mm,
look at um for me it's been an opportunity to look at what they say about relationships. It's also about self-love. So
mm,
how an individual needs to be loved can be different for each of us, and it boils down to, how do I need to be loved in my romantic relationship, and what will I accept or what is not acceptable, right? And then from there, you can anybody here can imagine how tricky it is to still stay in a relationship like you and I've decided to do.
mm.
The transition from a romantic relationship to a friendship and even running a business together. But on the
Mhm.
other hand, I feel like in a way we've been blessed because because we've always been good friends and we do trust each other very much, then it hasn't been as hard as it might sound, I find.
Yeah.
Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, we know that we can trust each other.
Yeah. And it's like, what is the ultimate goal? Our friend Mars talks about that. Like with every decision, anytime I'm thinking about a decision, should I do this or should I do that? And he's like, well, what is your ultimate aim? What is it ultimately that you want to create, to walk towards? And so I think you and I have gotten to a place, well, what is our ultimate aim is, co-creating, co-facilitating, co-leading this community. That's what matters most. And so, through maturity, being able to talk through and be like, this is, let's do it in this way. And, you talked about, how they say if we don't work on ourselves, whatever we had, however we showed up in our previous relationship, we kind of will bring that into the next one.
Yeah,
That's
that's called the second marriage knowledge, like the knowledge you will bring into your second marriage, so called.
nice. And
Mm.
so the third time for me, that's the charm, I guess. Well, third time for both of us. But I feel like actually after my first marriage and also after our marriage as well, I'm not saying I'm right or it's the best way, but I find myself called to really taking time and space to work on myself. I'm still working on myself. There might be some people who see good qualities in me and be like, hey, you're doing good. And sure, there's some good things, but there's also areas that I'm really working on. And I feel like I'm becoming the person I need to be
Mm.
to meet that next person. I'm not ready yet. If they walked into my life right now, I know it's not going to be arranged that way. I believe that Krishna, divinity, is not going to arrange it until. So that's why I see this as like I'm working on myself, and I'm enjoying that.
Mhm.
That feels right for me.
Yeah. And there's different ways of doing it. It doesn't mean that you have to go to university and start studying yourself.
No.
The opportunities come as you share all over in our coming together as friends and business partners, or in the ashram, or within your family.
Yeah.
It's or in the new relationship too. It's not like there's no relationship that I guess is perfect. Any relationship is going to bring up opportunities for growth, you know?
Yeah.
So that's that's those are choices that we make. And also I feel like it's a little bit random. Like you can't really choose who
Mm.
you fall in love with, right?
Right. Yeah.
And you can't really choose when there needs to be a transition. Like feelings are not always rational either. So
Mm.
we're a little bit
Yeah.
at the mercy of destiny or karma, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah. But it seems like, yeah, I get that. Like we can't choose. At the same time, it seems like we have to, if it's ever going to happen, we have to open ourselves up in some sense, right? Like I don't want to say I'm closed,
Mhm.
but maybe I am, but I'm not looking. I mean, yeah, I'm just being honest. I do see attractive women, and I think, wow, she's attractive, but I'm not like actively seeking, and so they're never there. I don't know. There's not been any moments of like, oh, I find myself falling in love, or them approaching me and expressing interest like that. I think I'm like energetically maybe giving off the vibe. I'm working on myself, and
Mhm.
maybe at some point I'm like, okay, you know what? Like you've done this for some years now, Jack, and you're ready for the next step. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I'm not a psychologist, but it seems like, uh, yeah, it's not happening, and because I'm kind of not open to it or not looking for it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You are who you are.
yeah, yeah. You got to bite your tongue and be careful what you say. Yeah. No, it's. I guess I'm just so curious, and I do. What are you laughing at now? So here's something, and don't take offense to this because I mean no offense to anybody on this. But so I'm so curious. I notice that as I people watch, and as I go through life, because I'm riding the subway and walking to school, and I'm seeing lots of people, and what I'm so fascinated with these days is people's age, and for many different reasons. It seems to be the first thing that I notice, and I think it's helping me understand the impact of time, right? Like time is real. It's not waiting up. I was talking. This is kind of funny. My first wife, my ex-wife, happened to call yesterday for the haven't talked in a year. Anyways, we caught up, and we were joking about some stuff. And I said I've got gray hair now. I've got some gray hair on the sides here, just a few. And like last time, what we hung out, we were in our 20s, so it's like 20 years ago now. And it's just, I guess I'm just noticing like the impact of time. Like we're aging, and it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a gift, as we talk about with you, Hannah, right? Because we know people that passed at an early age, and they didn't have the privilege of growing old. So there's no judgment. There's nothing. There's just beauty in it. But I guess I'm just becoming aware of like I'm no longer 20, and I'm like, wow, that couple in their 60s or 70s, it's not too far away, and just like seeing how things are moving forward. And yeah, I mean, it fits with many of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and these bhakti teachings. So it's, I don't know, it's just something that's fascinating right now.
I guess we talked about this with the community on one of the calls recently, how middle age now is being recognized as an important chapter in an individual's life. Like we did in the beginning of 1900s, they figured out that adolescence is an actual stage in life where hormones are shifting and you become from a child, you turn into, at the end of the process, you're a young adult. And now in at this age in our 40s and in our 50s, we have the same kind of, like, for women, hormones are changing, and it's a transition into a different stage of our lives, and that it needs to have its own acknowledgement. And unfortunately, it's been kind of negatively described as a crisis, but it doesn't have to be. It is also a moment where we ask ourselves, what is it that is important to me? And I find myself thinking a lot about, like, how do I want to age? Like, how do I, because the small things I do now are going to kind of have a cumulative effect, I assume, on, later. And for example, mobility or all kinds of lifestyle choices. I'm thinking, I don't want to become a couch potato. Like, I can see how that could easily, progress if that becomes a habit to not be active in the evenings, for example, and so many other choices where I'm asking myself, who do I want to become
Mm.
as, as we're still young. I understand that we're very young still, and it's almost like a moment where we stop and think, hey, how do I want to create the rest of my life? What do I want that to look like? Where do I want to live? And I even think, like, where do I want to where do I want to die? And to me, it's not a scary topic, because I do think that it's going to be hard to let go. Of course, I have attachments to my world, my children, my people, my relationships. And so it's going to be a transition. But I also, because of my spiritual beliefs and my life experience, I don't think it's going to be a disaster. I think it's going to be um, a transition.
Mm.
And I do think that consciousness survives. So for me, I see it as also something exciting to think about. Like, everyone here is going to experience it one day. And that's why it's so scary, because we don't know how it's going to go. We can't control it. And so
Mm.
I'm thinking about our middle age as, again, a little bit of an opportunity to um, stop everything and reassess what's important, and where do I go? What do I want to do? Who do I want to become? Right.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, or that's, I mean, that's a big opportunity you have as yogis, as spiritual seekers, and with our sadhana and our spiritual practice, and thinking, yeah, what are the rituals that we want? Because there's watching Netflix is in every evening is a ritual, right? And I've done it, you know, and really choosing intentionally what are the things, and again coming back to this stage of middle age. Like I do asana every morning. It's the first thing I do, even before going to the Mangala Arti, and it's it's different. You're doing asana, yoga asana poses now is different than it was in my 20s. Then it was just like power and sweat and strength and, you know, and sculpting my body. And now, like, as I do it, it's like I just say to myself, I couldn't imagine if I didn't do these stretches. Like, I'm stiff, you know. Maybe it's because I sleep on a floor at the ashram, but no, it's like I need to move my body and stretch and to breathe, and so this is something I'm just like so committed to, whether I'm, you know, staying with my family in Muskoka or wherever I happen to be, like just always doing that asana. So yeah, like thinking about those rituals, and you mentioned about the idea of like where to die. That's interesting. I've never thought about that. I'm thinking about where to live. I haven't thought about that, where to die, because in one sense we don't know when and where it's going to happen. But I guess as we're getting to later stages of life, to be able to think about, well, who do I want to be surrounded by? What are the activities I want to be doing? Whether it is something sudden like a heart attack, or whether it's in our sleep peacefully, or we don't know. But thinking about that, I whether it's true or not, I met with a Vedic astrologer last summer. I shared that on one of the podcasts a while ago, and one thing that he said was that from now, it was 2024. He said from 2024 to 2028, you're going to be going through some. It's going to be a little bit challenging, but from 2028 to 2048, you're going to be thriving, and things are going to be just like really, really good. So regardless of all that thriving or good or that, what I hear in that is, hey, I'm going to be living from the age of 48 to 68. So it's like, whether it's true or not, it actually happens, but I'm kind of feeling I've got until at least 68. So that's another 24 years to go. But I haven't thought about that, about where to die. I feel like probably later stages. Now it's so prominent. Where do I want to live? How do I want to create my life? I got a lot to do, a lot of projects, but eventually that will be a consideration.
Yeah, and I don't mean it like the actual moment of death. Of course, I don't know where that happens, but what I do think is for us who are people who travel a lot and we have, not maybe you have a little bit of a foundation here in Canada. You've always known you want to live here. You grew up here. You want to always live here. I don't know that. So for me, that's why it's like I'm thinking wherever I choose to go next, not that it needs to be the place where I stay forever. I can stay 5 years in Italy and then go to I don't know where. But for me, I'm thinking eventually, you'll start building up a community and a place where you want to kind of feel that you are living the rest of your life, maybe. And maybe it is Canada. I don't know. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying that that's what I mean with it, like where we build up the community. And one thing that I wanted to kind of when I'm listening to you, I was thinking about like the balance between community and people and silence and contemplative practices. I think also at our age, as we go ahead from here, we'll have more and more patience and desire for silence and having mindful connections versus just being in a really busy world. And coming back to the importance of relationships, I do think that it's also important to have the silence. Like they say that music is made because there's silence. That's how we can find the different tones. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense if it wasn't for the silence. And I think that's true for all of our, like all areas in our lives as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's why that's a big reason I want to be in Canada. I mean, the biggest reason is my family is there, but also very high up there is the fact that, my parents, my family are kind of in the middle of nowhere, like in the nature, on the lake, walk out the door and it's just nothing but trees and lakes and forest. And I feel called to that. And so, I mean, the two places that I want to be, the two main places are Canada, because that's my home and it's the nature, but then also Mother India. Like I feel at home there. That feels like that is it. And both of those places, because when I go to India, oh yeah, yes, I fly into Mumbai. I know Swati is from Mumbai, and but then I go to Govardhan Eco Village, which is like very sattvic and kind of living with the devotees and doing strong spiritual practice. So I feel like those are the places that I'm drawn, and those will be like my foundations. Like maybe half the year in Canada, half the year or some amount of time in India every year. But that being said, I also feel compelled and called to go connect with our community. I mean, you better believe it, Sarah and George. I'm going to show up in Kent, UK at some point. Whether we're going to meet in Oxford or London, like we're going to meet in the UK. Our Finnish friends, Rita, got to get to Peter Maritzburg, South Africa. Like and this is where I need to be mindful of balance, because I could get really excited about this and create a North American tour and a European tour, and let's just make it a world tour, and go and lead workshops at all these places and go to festivals, and that's exciting. But if I do too much of that, then I can easily become depleted. So it'll be about this, having the sattvic grounded, simple life in Canada and in India, but then also going out and connecting with beautiful souls and teaching and learning and sharing and creating. And I think that's fitting for this stage of life, right? Kind of middle age. Like in my 20s and 30s, half of the 30s, it was like all in travel, see the world, like sleeping on airport benches, riding Greyhound, doing just austerities, doing whatever to be able to go out there and experience and do and live. And then maybe towards the end of life, it'll be like, I'm just really happy to live at the ashram, the eco village in India, or in Canada, wherever I happen to be. But now in this middle section, it's like kind of finding the balance of both, and it's knowing my nature. I think some people are very extroverted and very social, and they can do more and more of that traveling. And but I know for me, the balance is important. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah,
feels like a beautiful opportunity.
yeah, totally. And but actually, the other thing is everybody's unique. Some people might be hearing what I'm sharing and be like, "Man, that still sounds exhausting." Like and there's no right or wrong or better or worse. Like it's not like traveling is the answer. Like that, it just happens to be something I enjoy, and we happen to have community all around the world. But we can live a very simple life and still a very meaningful and very impactful, and by cultivating a small little sangha, a little community of devotees, little community of yogis, of seekers, and having a little space and doing a little bit of nice seva in the community, whatever those projects happen to be. It's like we all have a different nature. So I guess I need to remind myself of that as well, and not compare, because there's people out there doing extraordinary things, and I could compare myself, like, oh man, who am I? I'm nobody. But we got to be true to ourselves and do what feels right.
Yeah, and I feel like it's karmic too. This thing with travel, like sometimes in our world, we think of travel as something extremely luxurious and exclusive, and it is a privilege, but it's also wherever you go, there you are. You bring yourself, your issues, your challenges. It's not an escape from the realities of life. And it is nourishing in its own ways, as is being at home, as is creating community at home. So
Yeah.
I
The
guess
one.
what I hear in, like, I think for you karmically, and I think a lot for me too. I've always been a so-called expat. I've always lived abroad. I've created a life out of nothing in places where I don't really have any business, but then I've lived there for many years and learned the language and the culture, and I've made it my home. And then I miss all those homes for the rest of my life. So it's also not the easiest choice, but it's just something um that is almost feels like a karma or something that I can't change about myself. That's what I am good at. That's what I do. That's how I thrive. But I do thrive here too. So it's not that it has to always be a new project to, you know, feed my restlessness or anything, but it's it's how I was built, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a great reminder. And yeah, I mean, because there's the idea of the grass is greener on the other side. We think, oh, if I could just live there, if I could just find that right relationship, get that right job, or whatever it happens to be. But like you say, wherever we go, there we are. We can change our relationship, our city, our nationality, we change our religious orientation, we change all of that. The common denominator is us. And so, being aware of that. But yeah, and as you say, like traveling, it can be very exhausting, right? I mean, it can like, time zones and jet lag and all that. Those are some of the hardest times. Like I'm thinking, like when we used to fly to Helsinki for the Helsinki Yoga Festival, we have to make sure we got there a few days in advance because just getting over the jet lag. If we need to show up and teach, it's
Yeah.
different if you're kind of showing up and being a student and receiving, but if you really got to show up at your best.
Yeah, and simultaneously we're running a business, managing a home with kids. It all of those transitions are expensive. If we spend 3 more days in Helsinki, it's not the cheapest place in the world. We might, end up spending for Airbnbs and hotels and food, and it has its own challenges. And though that's kind of how our life has been built up, our community is, like you said, all over.
Mhm.
And then we do our best with that.
But one of the things that I do love about traveling, this, Hanna, is practicing the local languages.
Yes.
Like I'm basically fluent in Finnish. Would you not? I mean, maybe not fluent, but I mean, I can say whatever I want to. I can't always respond, but I'm teasing. I'm not that good, but I love practicing Finnish. I love practicing Hindi. I love practicing Russian. I love practicing Cantonese and Mandarin. And I'm not fluent in any of these, but it's like so fun to like walk in, whether you go up to the grocery store or wherever it is, and speak their language, and people just like light up, and it's just so fun to engage in that way. And yeah.
Did you ever see on YouTube or somewhere in social media Finns, rally car drivers? For whatever reason, the Finns are like fearless drivers. Like they like, F1, the fast cars, but then they also have these rally cars that they drive in the forest. And a
Hmm.
lot of those guys like end up, I don't know, for whatever reason, like on in international contests. And Finns are known to be pretty like kind of rough personalities. Like they don't really give it away. They're very short in their answers. They're very honest. They'll answer yes or no, right? On these big platforms where they then are interviewed. Have you ever watched a clip like that with a Finn when they speak English and there's a cultural um gap? I will have to send you clips like that because that's how you sound, but in reverse. So that would be for you to experience when someone is trying to like express themselves in your language and you just go like, I don't know what's happening. There must be a cultural gap. And it's very disarming and and kind of it is also a way you create connection when you speak a language that you maybe know just 5 sentences in.
Hmm. And
Although Finnish, you can teach a whole class in Finnish,
yeah,
a yoga
and
class.
people feel like the intention. People feel a sincerity, right? Like if you're, because I know I don't speak it perfect, and in fact I don't try to learn, because I would speak not quite perfect, and you would try to correct me, and I'm like, no, I'm going to stick with my broken Finnish because this is how I learned it. As a child, I'm going to keep this going, and actually, even at the temple here in Boston, like some of the devotees will correct me a little bit on my Hindi, and they suggest how it is, and I'm like, well, no, this is how I learned it, so I'm gonna keep it this way. Where people understand and people smile and laugh, so I'm gonna keep saying it this way, even if it's not quite correct. And so again, it comes back to, we were talking about Sanskrit on the previous satsang call. It shows respect to learn the language and learn the pronunciation and understanding, but really people can feel our intention. And that's what matters. And that's, I mean, that's my intention of meeting and connecting with people.
Yeah. I guess for you, the way it works is the that you'll stick to the way you memorized it
Yeah.
first time around. And then that's how it's always going to be. And
Yeah.
that's great.
Exactly. There's only limited capacity.
Yeah.
There's only so much. I mean,
Well,
just
I don't know. I speak 7 languages.
I know that's crazy. That's get that. I mean, I know there's someone on the call here, like some of our friends in probably Sonal and Swati, some in India who might speak their local
Yeah.
dialect, and then they all speak Hindi as well, and then they speak English because they're here. So for sure, you guys know three. I'm sure Swati knows Marathi, Hindi, and English, plus more. But yeah, Hanna, it's. I think again, this is where people have different nature. Like it's one of the reasons I enjoy studying Sanskrit is because it is so hard. It's like it is hard,
It's like
and but
impossible.
it's impossible. It's basically it basically is. But I find like by using my brain in that way, again, coming back to at this stage of life, like back in my 20s studying engineering, I was just really using my brain and good with numbers. And but now having been lazy in that sense, lazy intellectually, it feels really good to challenge the brain in that way.
Yeah, and they say it's really healthy too for brain function to learn a new language. And that's why I think a lot of people use those apps to
Mm,
challenge themselves and learn new words and use their brain in really regenerative ways.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I see my mom do it. There's that app, that Duolingo,
Yeah.
and she'll just like pick a language, Hungarian, and she'll just like spend some days or some weeks learning Hungarian, and then she'll just pick different languages like that. And I think it is really healthy and really yeah, it is good for the brain. Balancing that with uh, our body though, and this is where it becomes very holistic, right? Like the importance of moving our body, doing the asana, the association, the good people, feeding our mind with good texts. This is what it's not just like, oh, all I have to do is this. And I know that's where sometimes even in the bhakti community, in any community, I'm sure you can find people that they learn something or they read something. I'm sure I've been guilty of this. Learn something. Okay, this is the way. This is all I need to do, and the other things don't matter because this is the most important thing that's going to connect me to God. And that's true. Yet it's also important to take care of our body. Our body's a temple. Like if you see the devotees, they put it's called tilak. They put the clay markings on their forehead and on 12 different parts of their body, and they're marking their body as a temple. And so the devotees where I live, I was asking them actually just yesterday, 24/7, they're wearing the tilak, they're wearing the clay markings. So as soon as they wake up in the morning, they shower, they put it on. Before they go to bed at night, they'll take a shower, put on fresh tilak, 12 parts of their body, and go to bed. It's honoring their body as a temple, and it's seen as protection. And so, you know, yeah, I guess just seeing, the body, the mind, the spirit, tending to it all. Sounds very yogic.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it's a way to connect with silence, you know, which could be part of our contemplative practices and what some of us might call God or the universe, to get in touch with the thing that doesn't change because life is all about change, growth, right? We're talking about middle age and aging and gray hair and traveling and how we choose to live the rest of our lives and where we want to die. And
Mm,
then there's a part of the universe that doesn't change, that is stillness or a source for um, spiritual nutrition.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, sorry, say what you just said again. I read the chat.
I said that these ways of engaging in spiritual practice, so whether it's using or seeing your body as a temple or the tool with which you connect with the universe or God or higher power, I was saying maybe it is the importance of balancing that, because God or the universe is like and a part of us that we can connect to that doesn't change when
Mm,
everything is constantly changing, like our hair color is turning towards gray or white, and there we understand that we're in different life stages, everything's constantly changing, we're constantly navigating day and night. And then there's a part of us that craves for the spiritual nourishment that comes from silence, from connection with God, universe, insert your understanding of God,
mm.
right?
What this was like a perfect setup and commercial for Sanatan Dharma. I mean, really, like it. So Sanatan Dharma, our eternal Dharma, right? We may think, we might be tempted by our senses and seeking sensual pleasure, but ultimately, what we're seeking is what's eternal, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what. So the term Hinduism is modern. That's just been around a few hundred years. Somebody mispronounced the Sindhu River Hindu, and but Sanatan Dharma, which are the teachings, for millennia, forever in. This is about, yeah, seeking the essence of like being called towards what is eternal, and understanding that we are like who we are, our soul, our pure spirit soul is eternal, that connection with divinity, recognizing that this body is changing. And I think that's coming back to why I'm just fascinated observing people's ages. I'm just like, I don't know, it's just that's just what I notice as I'm just like, huh. And I'm like, that person is starting to get gray hair. I bet you they're around this age. Like I'm just like just aware of the aging process. And before I was just oblivious to it. I think
Yeah.
when you're young, you're just like, okay, well, there's two categories. Those people are old, and I'm in the category of let's go have fun and everything, and life is good. Let's go enjoy. But now just being able to reflect and seeing these different stages and respecting them.
I guess that's called maturing, because when we're young, we feel eternal and
Mm,
life feels eternal. We're like constantly in this eternal present moment, looking ahead a lot towards the future. Whereas now you're starting to look at the past and noticing that time does go by and it has its consequences. And like in the Gita, Krishna says, I am time,
hmm.
right? That's a fascinating way to define God or the universe, that
Well,
time marches on and they have so much richness and conversation around time in this tradition that I'm not qualified to teach or talk about, but I know that it's a very fascinating topic.
yeah, time doesn't wait. Time keeps moving forward, and we see that. And it is. You mentioned about comes with maturity, and it is. It's true. Like it comes with as we have life experience, as we associate with good people that are engaging in meaningful conversations, as we engage, svadhyaya, engage the texts, and we do some seva, and we have the experience of like, oh, actually giving is more fulfilling than taking or receiving. And like this is where the maturity comes. And some are slower than others at getting to that maturity. So maybe you had these realizations probably at the age of 31 when you suddenly lost your husband, and it's like, whoa, this is real. This is like there's an expiry date on all of us. And at 31, I wasn't thinking about that. And so I guess at different stages, based on our karma, based on our life circumstance, based on all of these different variables, we kind of wake up at different stages. And that's why there's different paths as well. Like I and several here have kind of discovered this bhakti path and it feels right. But there's also different paths, not saying that one is better than the other, but some paths are more suited and more fitting for people who are a little bit more taking their spiritual life seriously, more committed, versus others are just like kind of very accessible. Like even if of the spiritual teachers that came from India in the 60s, some of them came over and brought elements of Sanatan Dharma, brought elements of the teachers and made it really accessible. Like, hey, you don't have to chant, you don't have to do a whole bunch of mantras. I'll give you this mantra, but you don't have to work at it too hard. You don't have to make any lifestyle changes. Like, I'll give you this mantra, so they made it really easy. And that attracts like more people because it's like really easy. Like, wow, I don't have to change. I can keep eating unhealthy and keep drinking and keep doing these bad things or doing these things that are not so helpful for my body. But all I got to do is take this mantra. And then there's other paths, again, not saying that one is better or not, but other paths that are more, there's more discipline, there's more commitment, there's more kind of a path to follow. And so basically there's a path for each of us, depending on our nature, depending on our inclination, depending on where we are. And I think that's important and that's healthy.
Yeah. And I'm thinking like rather than defining lifestyle choices as good or bad, I would think that the reason why traditions might have said it's not so good to take drugs or drink or be dependent on caffeine, for example, is because the quality of connection that you can create with divinity will be impacted by your lifestyle choices.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's exactly. And then it can become very subtle. So like the devotees where I'm living at the ashram, there's no garlic and no onions, right? That's just part, they don't eat any. And because that's very subtle. Like we can see drugs is like really obvious, right? Like drugs and heavy drinking, it's really obvious that that's impeding your spiritual practice. But then it becomes a little more subtle with, yeah, like you say, caffeine. And some people are like, oh, well, I enjoy a coffee. It's not bad. And I'm not saying it's bad. But then even more subtle than that, onions and garlic, because it creates this rajasic mode. It activates that in us. And so we're more disturbed in our meditation. So again, I'll be honest, when I'm living with the devotees, of course I eat, no onion and garlic. When I go home, my mom just happens to put it in. And I do remind her that I'm doing my best not to eat it. But if she makes something with onion and garlic, I still eat it and I love it. So we're kind of all at different stages.
I don't know if it's a stage thing, but it's a way to maybe experiment
Yeah.
with one's own receptiveness and how it impacts, you know, your meditation or your
Yeah.
ability to be present in your practices, right?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good distinction. It's not a stage because that somehow suggests that like, oh, I'm here, but I need to get better and get to there. But it's not the case because it really is more of an experiment and finding what will be most suitable for us. This is good. Good conversation. Oh my goodness. I realize this is like a marathon. Sarah was even up stretching, because we've been sitting here for 2 hours now. So I hope for those who have been with us for the hour of Bhakti Satsang and now our podcast will get up. I'm going to go do a japa walk, get some sunshine, some vitamin D. But thank you for being here and for the conversation. What we got coming up, we got a retreat 3 weeks away. Anybody in the West or East Coast US, come to West Virginia for our Bhakti retreat. We've got our India retreat. Lots of more amazing things happening. Oh yeah, and 200-hour yoga teacher training starts on Saturday. So if there's anybody out there curious about very empowering program with a high vibe community of becoming your best self. We
Starts
would
on
love
Sunday. Yeah.
Sunday. Did I say Saturday?
Yeah.
Sunday. Yeah, starts on Sunday. So that kicks off. We do that throughout the summer. You want to become a certified yoga teacher, but otherwise, yeah, I'm grateful to be on this path. Always inspiring. Thank you for your time, Hanna.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing.
thank you all for being here. Shout out Sarah and George. Sonal, I saw your message, Sonal. I love it. You're English enthusiast like us as well. We got Mina, Swati, Pam, Rita, got Brandon, Angie, represent Muskoka. We got Shiva Ram, Ritika, Kwan, Dana, Suvi, Danica, Pooja, Mahindar, Ochani. Thank you all for being here. And Facebook Live, thank you for being here on this journey with us. Wishing you an amazing rest of the day. Back here next week for Bhakti Satsang as well as podcast. And we'll see you then. Namaste.
Namaste.